Good morning, everyone. We're delighted we have so many of you joining us this morning for our continuing series of expert webinars. This morning's session is focused on driving bookings and spend into September and beyond. This is the second in a two-part series. As an industry, we have never been in such a challenging position, and trying to navigate these unprecedented times is extremely tough. We in Fáilte Ireland are trying to support industry by doing some forward thinking and planning on driving sales and spend into the shoulder season, September and beyond. Our first webinar on Tuesday gave us all an in-depth review of the latest domestic consumer insights and sentiment. That webinar and Q&A are all available on the Fáilte Ireland website. Today, to give you the practical advice and tactical approach from our sales and channel experts, really to capitalise on those insights and generate most needed revenue and sales. In today's live broadcast, we're delighted to be joined by our industry experts, Oonagh Cremins and Aisling McVeigh, who will reflect and link back into the latest consumer insights and sentiment shared with you on Tuesday to now discuss how to effectively communicate with potential customers and really how to best optimise revenue during a customer's visit. Before we invite Oonagh and Aisling to start the session, I'm going to hand you over to Helen McDade, Manager Enterprise Development. Helen will go through this morning's housekeeping Q&A and will also be moderating the session for us this morning. So over to you, Helen.
Great, thanks Martina. Good morning everybody, you're all very welcome. So as Martina said, we have Aisling and Oonagh with us this morning. So just as a wee bit of an introduction, Aisling is particularly skilled around translating data and insights into meaningful messaging and communication that's going to resonate with a key market. And the most important part with this is obviously about driving conversion. And then also a very warm welcome to Oonagh Cremins, who many of you know. And Oonagh is going to have the real kind of commercial lens and commercial head on today, and she's going to bring her expertise in the areas of revenue generation and strategic sales and distribution. So we'll be putting all their skills to pretty good use this morning. Now, as Martina had mentioned the webinar on Tuesday, and I had talked on Tuesday about given the fact that both industry and consumers are operating in a totally alien environment due to the pandemic, about the need to pivot. And it's about pivoting your business, pivoting your message, pivoting your product. And the consumer insights that Jill shared with us showed us what we need to pivot towards and really where consumers' heads are at right now. So just before we start the presentations, I'll just run through a few of the details and how the whole thing's going to run. The session will last about 50, maybe 55 minutes. It'll definitely be under the hour. Aisling and Oonagh will both have about 20 minutes each to kind of go through their presentations. So we'll start off with Aisling, who's going to focus around the consumer insights, about using those consumer insights around behaviour and intent, how to effectively communicate with those potential customers, kind of knowing where their heads are at. And then Oonagh will follow that up by talking through how to best optimise the revenue opportunities, increase the spend from those consumers. And then what we'll do is we'll cover the questions for both sessions at the end once both presentations are complete. But you can go ahead and submit questions throughout the presentations, and then we'll obviously get to as many of those as we can. And then we also had all the questions that were submitted during the registration, which were great because they've really helped us tailor these presentations to where your needs are at currently. Finally, we are recording the session and that'll go up on the Fáilte Ireland Support Hub, and we'll send out links and everything to that as well. So without further ado, Aisling, I'll hand over to you and then I'll pop back in whenever you've finished.
Thank you, Helen, and good morning everyone and welcome to today's session. In the first part, I will be taking you through messaging and communication, with key takeaways including how to process the data shared by Jill during Tuesday's session and what the insights can mean for you and your business. From there, we'll look at how to shape your messaging, keeping the target segment in mind, and explore what communication channels are most relevant to them. So in summary, today we'll look at translating the data and insights into meaningful messaging and communications that resonate with the key target audience to drive conversion across your multiple revenue streams. So let's start by processing the data. What is the consumer looking for? As we plan for September and beyond, we now know following the release of the latest research results that there are two key emerging consumer insights to consider They are number 1, value for money, and number 2, health and safety. Both are presenting the largest barriers to travel in the current landscape and will remain the 2 biggest factors of consideration and concern for potential guests as we move into the shoulder season. Safety related to COVID-19 especially skews to older couples who are a key target market for the autumn and must therefore be addressed also as a priority. It's crucial that we know and understand who we are targeting as a potential guest, as their tastes and preferences will vary and provide the basis for the packages and experiences we should offer. It also impacts what channels we should use to reach them, as different segments can often rely on a different marketing mix. As we move beyond summer, we'll need to pivot quickly, as Helen mentioned, and move our focus from the family staycation to the unconstrained adult, satisfying their needs and wants when it comes to the ideal getaway or day out. Now, more than ever, we need to be innovative and flex our creativity rather than rolling forward seasonal packages that we perhaps have used for years gone by. On the next section, we see a snapshot of the unconstrained adult, who, based on the research, will be our key focus as we move into the shoulder season. This segment can be broken down by those aged 45 plus, with a key call out on this slide being midweek experiences and outdoor activities such as hiking, walking, national parks, historic houses and castles, while the pre-family bucket are leaning more towards a weekend escape and experience, and very interestingly, a brave dip in the sea. We've all seen in recent weeks how our social media feeds have been full of people braving the Irish Sea for the first time, regardless of whether it's hail, rain or snow or very cold. So playing on this insight as an example, if you are near the coastline, think about if you have a list of the top nearby beaches as part of your content strategy, or could you build in a boxed breakfast to go to accompany them on a sunray swim? You could perhaps also incorporate a list of top beaches into your website blog or bring this to life through social. Again, a very simple example of how you could play on the insight and bring this to life through your messaging and communication. The key takeaways to note here are that both segments are driven by value, cost and safety, but also food, beverage and culture are coming to the fore, as well as accessibility to the destination. So let's now take a look at cost and value for money. We're clear that we are targeting, but let's look closer at the value proposition to understand the weight of value versus price, as it's crucial that we understand the difference between both. The value of something is the sense of worth or amount the customer is willing to pay for a given experience, whereas price is simply the cost. The more we can inspire the consumer with meaningful experiences that resonate with them based on their tastes and preferences, the more that we can entice them to come and stay for the overall experience, rather than just making a decision based on the cheapest price. So when we look at this value piece, how can we create our message around it? In this next section, we'll deep dive into how we can define our value proposition and create that message that's going to resonate. Some key things to consider when you are doing this are as follows. Think about what you can offer based on the consumer intent, their wants and their needs. Based on the research, we know that unconstrained adults are seeking great food, historic houses and castles, as we've just gone through as an example. So see how you can build these into your experiences. Also look at what makes you different or more desirable than anywhere else, as this is what's going to set you apart from the comp set. Think about what you do differently to other accommodation providers. What about your attraction? How is it different? And looking at the other destinations that perhaps yours is competing with, what is the key draw for people to come and stay with you? That comes down to the next point, is really looking at your distinctive offering and why people should choose to stay or visit. What are you known for? Is it great hospitality, an exceptional view, or a central location at perhaps the gateway to the Wild Atlantic Way? Make sure that you sit down and think about all of this and bring it into your messaging, as is what really is going to drive cut through and gain market share for you. And finally, what is your promise to your guest? Perhaps this comes back to your brand, what your core values are, and what the guest can expect to experience when they come and stay with you. And be sure to bring this into your messaging also. Moving on from that, it's important that we highlight our USPs as you build out your copywriting. Certain aspects to include could perhaps be your location, any award-winning food, spa, activity or attraction. Perhaps there are complimentary on-site experiences that you offer, such as complimentary bike hire, should we say. Perhaps there's breathtaking views, or can you offer exclusive access to local hidden gems that nobody else can? And when it comes to visitor experiences, what is the service and culture that you offer? Another element to clearly call out is the value-added items included in your packages and experiences. We know from our research that F&B bundles are destined for success, or perhaps as you plan for October midterm, can kids eat free? If you're offering a tour of the local area, are refreshments included, such as tea or scone at a local traditional cottage? What about complimentary transport or a shuttle so that guests don't have to worry about how they're going to get there and back? As we look at concern around safety being a key aspect as we move forward, we're seeing that guest behaviours and patterns are changing on a day-to-day basis. They're concerned perhaps that they book a stay today, but maybe want to cancel 5 days out. So what are we offering around free cancellation and flexibility around this piece? Is there a VIP amenity or souvenir gift that you can give your guests or visitors to take home? Or what about those complimentary destination-led experiences that drive value that we can include in our key offering? As we move on, a great starting point to drive a consistent message across the greater communications plan is to look at the season or quarter ahead and spend some time working on clear and concise copy for your packages and experiences. At first, this can seem time-consuming and a big task that requires a sharp focus and can be difficult to complete in a busy office, especially when the operation is busy. I'd suggest to block out some time in your diary and find a quiet place to work so that you can slip away to focus on your copywriting. Some key elements to include here are the naming and headline. So get creative and draft something catchy that will draw the market's attention rather than just your standard 2-night BB plus dinner. A clear description highlighting USPs, added value, and accessibility with the destination will support. It's very important that you list the exact inclusions in your package so that there's no room for confusion with the guest as to what's included for the price that they're paying. Be sure to call out the from rate, as well as any booking or inquiry details so that you convert from looker to booker with efficiency and ease. And make sure also to include any other terms and conditions that should be noted, again, to avoid a frustrated guest or visitor, as there's nothing more annoying than when you've done all of your research, you go to book and then realise that it's actually booked out until Christmas. In the next section, we've laid out 2 examples for you to reference as you work through in your own time. The first example is a hotel package at Amman in Venice, and it showcases how they use clear and concise messaging to include the offer and headline. They've also included a description and package inclusions with a clear CTA to check back to availability. Ideally, this is what we would like our offers to look like on our page, on our website, and forms the basis of consistent communication that we can roll out across all of our channels. The second example is a pre-trip email from Dublin Bay Cruises with a great value add to their experience, which is a discounted DART ticket so that visitors can easily access the cruise departure point and make their way home again after they reach the arrival destination. The insights tell us that day trips still predominate in terms of what consumers are doing as part of a staycation. This presents an opportunity to drive demand and spend, but it's key to drive awareness of your business and position it along yourself the way to capitalise on this segment. Make sure that your messaging clearly links to the destination brand. In order to do this, check through current collateral, digital channels, and discoverireland.ie listings to see if you have referenced the destination brand and what you can offer to the unconstrained adult preferences. Where there is room for improvement, make sure that you update as required. So now that we're clear on our messaging and it's signed off by all stakeholders internally, now we need to know how we're going to tell that message and what we're going to say to drive maximum reach amongst the key target audience. That being the unconstrained adult, as broken down into the 2 buckets we have looked at, which is 45 plus and pre-family. I'd advise to explore all communication channels available to you both on and offline, and to consider the target audience and what channels that they specifically use. Based on the insights, we know that the 55 plus are leaning towards direct bookings and inquiries, so your website should be up to date. Make sure that you also brief the reservations team so that they can manage inquiry calls with consistent messaging, while also highlighting your value proposition across any paid for print, digital, or radio ads. On the other side of the coin, the pre-family bracket tend to research extensively on a comparative basis and are known to sift across both direct and indirect channels as they look for the best value. We are also seeing a very high review consumption rate, placing a great importance on managing the response time and messaging on these platforms, such as TripAdvisor. Consumers are also looking for the most recent reviews and a rating of at least 4 to 5. So again, highlighting how crucial it is that we are in control of these platforms. As you roll out your message, be sure to update all of your communication channels, especially those most relevant to the target market, as we have just gone through on the previous slide. When it comes to your website, since we are talking value, make sure that your office page is clearly updated with all of the lovely write-ups that you have just worked on. The same message can then be translated for your social channels using similar imagery for consistency and a shortened caption. Again, be sure to review your discoverireland.ie and third-party listings, including OTAs and TripAdvisor, to reflect your value message. And as you are planning your e-sign content for September, October, look to include packages and experiences that speak to the target audience and combine with visuals that reflect this demographic. If you have the luxury of a PR or ad team externally, or be it in-house, make sure that they are also kept up to date. Radio scripts can also easily be drafted by tweaking these write-ups that you have already worked on. And be sure to emphasize your USPs and key value add when doing so. Quite often an afterthought, but one of the most important areas of focus is really to make sure that the greater internal team is aware of the latest offers. They spend the most time interacting with guests, and so are best placed to sell. And lastly, our visuals, which we touched on slightly already, but take some time to review your asset library and channels. Focus on reflecting the unconstrained adult and not just families who may have dominated your marketing collateral throughout recent weeks. Now, moving on from value, let's take a look at the second greatest barrier to travel that we are currently facing, which is the ongoing concern around health and safety. Based on consumer insights, we know that domestic holidaymakers are emerging from lockdown, but as they book and enjoy a holiday at home, they do remain cautious about contracting and spreading COVID-19. They also want to feel reassured that it is safe or visit to stay. So this provides a need to provide ongoing insurance. If we look a little closer at the research shared by Jill, despite being more likely to engage in the appropriate behaviours, confidence about their safety drops in middle-aged consumers especially. So hotels need to continue to focus on safety and the value equation. But it's not all negative, there is still an opportunity. While consumers are managing an inner dialogue between logic and their emotions, they are also looking to make a break for it. Building on what we learned around creating your message for the value proposition, when it comes to safety, a key focus must be on the informative angle and being transparent with the guest regarding how you are managing your protocols and what they can expect. Be sure to put yourself in the guest's shoes and consider the relevant information that they are looking for. What are the most recent FAQs that your team have been receiving? And do you have up-to-date messaging in place for the team to respond to these with consistency? Use your intuition and preempt their concern, and try to empathise with their longing to understand what the on-ground experience will look like when they arrive. Be sure to add your health and safety procedures to your website, and where possible, implement a seamless pre-booking system where a great example would be Photo Island, which have showcases a fantastic innovation from the team there. So if anybody is on the line from Photo, well done to you all. I think you've really showed a fantastic example of how this can be managed so well and in a really innovative and guest-friendly way. I would also suggest to create a formal FAQ document to help track and respond to common queries and concerns, and to communicate your cancellation policy to combat any guest fears around ongoing uncertainty. You can also provide ongoing reassurance through the COVID-19 Safety Charter, which is government endorsed and an initiative to reinforce confidence. It's also designed to give comfort and reassurance to guests that a business has undergone extensive training and agreed to adhere to COVID-19 preventative protocols. Once you have received your stamp, be sure to make it visible across all your channels. Another call out here is the team at the Cliffs of Moher, who've done a fantastic job in communicating their adherence across their channels. Let's not forget about our content and asset library, as it's crucial to visually communicate a safe haven in the current landscape that we're living in. Do your assets communicate your current experience? And does how it look showcase your health and safety procedures? If not, it's important to consider adding some new refreshed imagery that's updated regularly as guidelines are altered. What about outdoor seating? If you've installed any new areas, be sure to communicate those visually with your content, as well as spacious dining areas and any socially distant setups. Where possible, avoid showing confined spaces, tight meeting rooms, or large-scale wedding setups which are not relevant to the current market at the moment. And then we come on to the housekeeping team, who are really crucial in keeping us all healthy and safe in your properties and attractions. And with that, I'd love to show you an example from the Ritz in Paris. We are known for our warm and welcoming hospitality here in Ireland, but we can feel that our character and personality is being somewhat lost behind our face coverings. Here is a great example, as I said, from the team at the Ritz Paris, who've replaced a clinical approach with a more human touch by highlighting the key team members and the smiles behind their masks. These team members play a pivotal role, as I said, in the health and safety of guests and visitors, and the visuals alone help to provide reassurance and restore confidence in a friendly way. Moving on to the guest journey. We suggest to explore all stages of this journey and ensure to reinforce your health and safety message throughout. Is the Safety Charter logo embedded in your pre-arrival communications, and does it link to your full health and safety procedures? We are seeing a significant surge in phone calls pre-arrival, so be very transparent when it comes to what the guest can expect to experience on ground to avoid any frustration as they check in or enter an attraction. Include any pre-booking links to relieve pressure on the phones and the operation when guests arrive, again looking at the fantastic example that FOTA have implemented. Adair have also created a fantastic pre-screening arrival form, which is a great idea to help provide reassurance ahead of the guest's arrival. Such a practice may also be helpful to reduce any last-minute cancellations by restoring confidence for anyone experiencing last-minute uncertainty around their safety and stay. Guest reviews, as we said, on TripAdvisor are crucial in informing potential guests and about the true experience that they will receive on ground. So make sure, again, that they are being managed properly and channel owners are briefed before they respond. So with that, what can you do now? Here are some actions that you can do now that will hopefully lead to some quick wins to help you and your business. I suggest to complete the package write-ups, so block some time in your diary and escape to a quiet space to work on your messaging. You can also communicate these internally and update guest-facing channels once signed off, and be sure to circulate them to all team members and divide and conquer when it comes to those channel updates. Update your health and safety procedures and add them to the website. Here you can review what's currently in place and make only any updates as required. And again, once signed off, upload them and link to any booking confirmation communications so that guests know what to expect in advance of their stay. If you've not already done so, complete the COVID-19 Safety Charter, and most importantly, make sure that you make it visible. You can do this by downloading the artwork and rolling it out across your digital channels, but there's also a number of collaterals that can be rolled out on site within your property or attraction or experience also. And lastly, update any content to reflect the unconstrained adult. So check through your social channels collateral, website and blogs to see if you are reflecting this demographic, and if not, refresh your imagery to make it relevant. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. I hope that you found this section helpful in guiding you towards driving demand in September and beyond. I'd like to wish you all the very best as you work towards driving business through autumn, and look forward to seeing all of your wonderful messaging and communications in the market. And with that, I'll now hand back over to Helen.
Oh, rookie mistake. I was on mute. What I was saying was I was really struck, particularly with the last point there, is really one of the key actions would be to look now and almost do an audit of your assets and make sure that you're switching that from that summer family market into that fall, autumn, winter, unconstrained adult market, particularly as some more activities for attractions and that I'm thinking too, as they move inside, and how they can reflect that message that they're providing a safe environment would be really important.
Yes, exactly, Helen. I totally agree. I mean, we've been so focused on the family market over recent weeks and making sure that all of our assets are updated with that demographic. We really need to pivot quickly now towards the unconstrained adult. I'm also aware that creating content can be quite costly at times, but just to call out to people that any of the imagery that I've used in this section, they're all from the content pool, Ireland's content pool, which is available through the Fall to Ireland website. And if you have a login, fantastic. If you don't, it's very quick to register for, and you can filter by county and attraction. And also, I know that there are some fantastic supports on the COVID Hub at present around creating compelling content, which would be a good first stop to people to look at as well.
Okay, great idea. And I think people are more kind of forgiving. Like I saw one, I think it was an attraction, but they actually just did a quick bit of footage on a handheld iPhone that's showing people when they come in, where the sanitizer was, how they'd handle tickets, how they'd move on. And it was only a minute. Like, I mean, I never thought I'd be sitting broadcasting to hundreds of people from my spare room. So like, people get it. So it doesn't always have to be expensive. Exactly.
And that raw footage has that sense of authenticity, which is what people are looking for, especially around the safety piece.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Look, without further ado, we'll be chatting later, obviously, in the Q&A. So with that, Oonagh, I will hand over to you.
Okay, great. And thank you, Helen, and thank you, Aisling. And good morning, everybody, and welcome. I hear we have a great attendance on the call today, and I believe it's representative right across the industry in terms of activities, experiences, visitor attractions, hotels, and alternative accommodation providers. So that makes for a fairly lively question and answer session, I'd say, at the end of my piece today. So look, Jill's presentation on Tuesday delivered some really interesting insights for all of us. And I suppose I was quite excited because I found myself and my own sentiments and my own intent actually reflected in the findings. And I think many of you on the call will probably have had the same experience. So today really is about understanding what actions you can take to support your business, and essentially how you can drive demand and optimize spend in your properties for September and beyond. And we'll be looking at all the following topics. When we look at the insights that we got, and many of you have attended some training, revenue training in the past, but you'll know that we always talk about applying the learning. And it's never been more important now, because we have this very current and fresh consumer sentiment research, which really provides us with a fantastic palette of target customers, but also it tells us how our customers and consumers, our potential consumers, will behave in the coming months, particularly for September and October. And what we need to do is to take these insights and actually apply the learning directly to our own business. And that will vary on the businesses across this call that are on the call today. But you need to be able to take the learnings and apply them and create a business strategy, really. And as Aisling has referred to, and Helen, it's really important that you do this in a very quick way, I suppose, and pivot the business now for September and October based on these findings. And what's really important as well, I suppose, is that once you've created your business strategy, that you live and breathe it. And this is going to be very important when we talk about your value proposition in detail later on, because the focus really needs to be on operational excellence and genuine hospitality to ring fence your revenue performance in the coming months. The reality is that we have limited demand for our hospitality product at the moment. And again, many of you familiar with the revenue management scenario know that it's always a balancing act. It's a balancing act between supply and demand. It's a balancing act between generation and management. It's a balancing act between proactivity and reactivity. And at the moment, the balance is very skewed in the favour of supply, or in favour of demand, in that there's very little demand. So there's limited demand. So our focus, and we have lots of supply in the market right across the sector. So what we need to do as an industry is work together to generate demand. And really that has to be the focus. And one of the insights that Jill provided us with, which kind of supports that notion and that action, is that our KPIs and our lead indicators confirm both the opportunity and the need to inspire consumers to take a break. So it's important that we focus on demand generation that inspires and excites consumers to travel, to book with you, to visit your attraction. And that's really where our focus needs to be in the next 6 to 8 weeks for September and beyond trading. Pricing, well, Aisling, I suppose, has brought to your attention around the value for money piece and cost, and it's top of mind. So we can't ignore this. And what we must, I suppose, when you delve into the detail on this, what we see is that cost and price sensitivity has actually indexed higher. It's growing consistently as a concern or a barrier to travel over the past 3 research waves. So it's important. It's now ranking at 51% in index, and that's up from 47 on the 47, 49, and then 51. So that concern is growing steadily. So we need to factor that into all our pricing decisions, our rate control management, and our packaging and bundling. Revenue optimization is really about bringing it all together. You know, for years we've had a lot of focus in terms of our rooms and our revenue management in rooms, but really the space has opened up now that we need every part of the business and every revenue generating area of the business to deliver and revenue and return for the business insofar as it's possible. Many of you are working with reduced capacity, be that on diner count, on dwell time, on visitor numbers, on sleeper count. And again, that only adds to the argument of making other areas of the business work harder and to increase the spend. It was heartening to hear the AIB data last night, which confirms that that hotel spend is up and quite significantly on July last year in terms of food and beverage spend. So that was good to hear. And I think what we need to do is build on that for the coming months, and we'll be talking about revenue opportunities as we go forward. The key insights that we've learned around the consumer is that really the one I want to really focus on today is around the booking behaviour pattern. And there has been a channel shift, and this isn't just in an Irish context. I was just reading a US report last night, which also confirms that bookings are going direct to property. That's the greatest area of growth. And direct to property, followed by brand web, followed by OTA. And that's exactly what the research and consumer sentiment that Jill presented to us also confirms. So direct business is growing. Lead time has shortened significantly. The insight shows that really all the bookings are happening within a 2 to 3 week window within the month for the month. So it makes revenue management, the actual management piece, quite nail biting. And it's really a case of understanding the current market trends and being very dynamic and agile in reading those. Leisure segments are now our go-to segment. We had confirmation from Jill that word of mouth and anecdotal evidence will be key to decision making. So again, we need to be cognizant of that, and that links back to this operational excellence and genuine hospitality, along with reputation management that's so important. One of the key insights also, though, in all of this was that people want to go away, have fun, and the word was to relax. And I suppose we as hospitality providers, in whatever our business is, it's really, I suppose, our responsibility to ensure we provide that environment for our consumers so they can relax, enjoy, and ultimately spend money and contribute to the revenue and successful trading of your business. When we look at channel management direct, we know that, you know, as we said, that this has grown, and it's just not in an Irish context. So this is a wonderful opportunity for all of you businesses to grow a greater loyal database of consumers that will work directly with you and will book directly with you as a business. For years, we've kind of talked about the issue around OTAs stealing our customers and around third-party sites. But now you have a real opportunity through your direct channels of telephone and brand web to actually build a great database of loyal customers. And that's actually what the customers are seeking. The consumer sentiment is they want validation, and they want validation around their safety, and they want validation around their about the value for money. So hence they're ringing the hotels directly. But safety is that paramount piece that they are searching validation on. In terms of telephone sales, I would just urge you to really divide telephone sales into two parts. You have the transactional piece, which is really around that booking and conversion. It's around the upselling. It's around matching the rate with the customer and matching the room type with the customer. It's that traditional telephone sales call. And then there's the other element to that, which is actually that operational piece, which again, we're going to talk about FOTA having made a great example of an online and a seamless way to deal with the pool bookings, the food and beverage booking, the dining options, etc. Some hotels are also doing that in a manual way through a pre-arrival phone call, and that's also very strong, and it builds greater relationship as well with the customer. Whatever works for your business, but it's just important that we don't lose sight of the key metrics on the telephone around, are you converting the calls, ensuring that you're not missing calls, and ensuring that you have enough staffing on the calls, and that everybody who the internal team is aware of the rate and pricing strategy that you have as a business, so that they can convert those calls fully. And I suppose telephone has been a little bit neglected as a channel over the past few years. So it's maybe important to really review your selling structures and your processes in that space as we come into the next 2 months. I want to talk about some visitor attractions who have actually done a great job in terms of their booking experience. And I'm going to use 2 examples, one online and one offline, but both direct to the visitor attraction. So recently I was in Westport and I visited Westport House, and on the Sunday morning we decided we'd go over, so we made an online booking, and within minutes we had a very comprehensive email confirmation, which not only detailed and confirmed our booking details, but also confirmed safety protocols and pointed us in the direction of downloading an app onto our phones, which would allow us to conduct a self-guided tour of the attraction when we arrived. When we arrived, there was a very active and proactive queue management at the door, and really our interaction with staffing within Westport House was very limited because we had downloaded the app. It was simply providing a booking number at the desk, and then we were on our way using our own headphones and our own phone to have a wonderful visitor experience there. And this was followed by a post-visit survey, which was also very comprehensive and was sense checking our satisfaction with the attraction, which, as you can garner from this, was very high. I also had the wonderful opportunity to visit Skellig Chocolate Factory and just last Saturday. And again, this was an offline. I just arrived as a walk-up on Saturday morning, but some super safety and reassurance protocols in place in terms of questions on arrival, queue management, certainly spacing out, and lots of social distancing messaging in the building. And I suppose I just urge all of you as businesses to really display your COVID Charter logo on your website. I mean, in advance of this call today, we did a lot of research, around who's displaying it and using it and leveraging it. And many of you you're practicing it, but you are actually not showcasing it. And this is going to become much more important, I think, over the next 2 months to really put this front and center of your marketing. When we look at what can you do on your second direct channel, which is brand web, well, this opens up many possibilities. But we're going to go back to the basics first of all. And the basics are, have you got, is your rate display clean and easy to use? Can you reduce your room and rate type as appropriate to reduce kind of a big medley of rate return when I do a search on your website. You know, review the sequencing of rates. We know that the intent, the insights are telling us the intent is for a 1 to 3 night break. So how easy is it to find your multi-night length of stay rates on your website? And we also know there's an intent to book packages that are maybe have certain attributes like a food and beverage package. And we've always been challenged as hotels and providers around our bundling and package display. And it's important to look at that now and see, as a consumer, how does your website reflect the packages that you have built for this market. When we talk sometimes to bring the practical into the value proposition, it's really important to understand that giving booking flexibility will actually add to the value proposition, because it builds trust and it builds some transparency with your customer around your pricing and your booking conditions. When we look at the indirect channels, I'm sure many of you joined the webinar yesterday on driving domestic sales, also hosted by Fáilte Ireland. If you didn't manage to catch it, I would urge all of you to catch up with that on the recording that's available on the website. But what's important now is that you review your distribution landscape to include and to expand it as appropriate for your business. There's certainly, we have worked on a model over the past few years where we've worked on condensing down our channel mix. It's probably as new segments emerge, and there are new segments emerging in terms of unconstrained adults across different age categories, it's important to examine your channel mix and to understand, have you got the reach and the capability within your channel distribution mix to drive the business that you require. It's not one size fits all, so you will have to adjudge that as you go. The second is that we talked for years ago about omni-channel management, and now it's become really a reality for us. And this is about having consistency of messaging and consistency of text and imagery across your websites. The last thing we want to do when there's a lot of comparative shopping, we understand from the insights that people are researching in greater detail than they ever have before. We want to make sure that we're not going to cause confusion in the eye of the consumer. So really important that you have a very clear channel plan and a clear channel content strategy to support clarity of messaging to your consumer. Review and reputation. Well, again, yesterday we heard from TripAdvisor that quality, quantity, and recency are the three elements which affect their the algorithm of their review and of your grading on their website. So it's important that you take account of that and continue to really manage your reputation. And this is going to become more important, I think, because this is where reputation management will really influence the success of your revenue management strategy. And we need to just be aware of that as we go on. But don't forget other sites such as booking.com, Expedia, and any other channels that you're on in terms of review, and obviously along with your social media. And the main thing is that really when you sit down and you're planning for the next 2 months, that you create a pricing strategy that does not cause doubt or confusion, and that there's clarity around that. And we're just going to talk about that in a little bit more detail now as we move on to pricing. So the first step really for all of you as businesses is that you really need to look at the pricing values or your bar range that you have in place, that really that's aligning with value and customer expectation. And that's a piece of work that needs to be conducted sooner rather than later. You need to develop a midweek and weekend pricing strategy that is clearly linked to demand. So your rate control matrix is linked to demand, ensuring that you're giving consistency of pricing in the market. Innovative value offers will be important to drive demand. That was a key insight that we learned on Tuesday. And so it's important, as Aisling has referred to create packages that focus and are centered on food and beverage inclusions, cultural or heritage inclusions, and some relevant activity packages depending on the target segment that you're working to attract. We would urge you to consider using food and beverage credit as a booking incentive. This can be very popular and can certainly build more spend within your property. It allows you to capture the revenue within your own property, within the footprint of your own property, which is always important. And what we would say is you will have to factor lead time by channel into all your pricing decisions and certainly into your rate control. And to understand that lead time, I understand that there's probably a bit of concern about level of business on the books for September and October at the moment, and that's right. But we also need to understand that customers are booking for the month, in the month. So, to just factor that into your pricing decisions. But the main focus is really focus on generating the interest so that you can convert that customer into business in your property. Pricing, again, just some other things, that just might be tips for you as you go forward, is really not to be changing rate too frequently, but really linking it to demand. So the demand, as we know, is quite slow at the moment. So what we want is we want the consumer to be clear about the consistency of your price position in the market. And we want them to understand that price position. And I know that one of the comments that was received in the consumer survey was around, well, they seem to be changing the prices, throughout the day. I seem to be getting different prices all the time. And I suppose sometimes I see that we can make an error in hotels in that we focus too much on the rate control piece. I think you've heard me say that before, and not so much on all the work that happens prior to when we rate control. Now more than ever, it's more important to focus on the steps 0 to 8, and then work on the rate control steps, which are 9 and 10. The 0 to 8 is about building that momentum for your hotel. It's about building that momentum for your visitor attraction, getting the volume, getting an interest in the market, and then let's work on the price. So I suppose it's about, in revenue terms, it's about a RevPAR model. It's about building market share for your business. And so we would encourage you not to be changing price too frequently. We probably want you, if you think about it, as a business, you want to become known for a good value price offer, and so to drive volume, and thereafter you can revenue manage that. It's important as well to build integrity into your pricing. And what we mean by that is we really want you to link it to demand, so that if I book, with a longer lead time, that you're giving me perhaps a better rate. If I come at an odd time for a visitor attraction as such, that you're giving me an early bird rate, and that might help the visitor attraction drive volume at quieter times, and it also helps the client. Cancellation levels are running very high in the business at the moment, particularly on the OTA channels, also to do with our continuing updates and restriction updates that are happening. So very important that you build that into your capacity forecast. And hopefully we will be busy enough that will influence things in September and October. And I suppose one of the things that we would like to talk about is, that I want to prompt thought on more likely, is that around the new leisure segmentation. So many of you are working on segmentations that you had in your business prior to COVID. Well, in the new world, it has changed a lot, and leisure is going to be our bread and butter for the next 6 to 9 months, as we understand it from general forecasts. So I would urge you to really consider and to understand, to be able to measure and monitor the performance of the niche leisure segments within the business, to help you to actually really refocus and refine and distill your marketing and sales activities and your proactive revenue generation methods to ensure that you're targeting the correct market. In practical terms, things to consider, I suppose, just, as I said to you, I'm fresh back from my holidays just this week, and I saw some wonderful innovative products and tourism products available out there. One of the things that struck me most was around the level of food trucks and street food that's available, from the Mistern, which is in the middle, really, just sitting alongside the Killary Fjord in Mayo, which is a superb product, to the wonderful craft offering available at Celtic Ross Hotel. So, people are consuming food and drink in different ways now. And I suppose what's here on this slide is just things to prompt thought that you could consider around increasing your spend in your property. understanding that guidelines and protocols are restricting you in lots of ways in terms of food and beverage sales. But have you thought about having a coffee, water or food to go outlet in your property or in your visitor attraction? Aisling talked about this as well, having picnics or packed lunches to go. We found we were going out most of the days in our holidays, and it would have been, you know, we didn't see, or we certainly weren't prompted in any of our hotels around taking out a packed lunch or a picnic. History or poetry evening in house, that's more around packaging, but I have to give you a good example. I stayed in Renville House Hotel on my holidays, and one of the days, one of the staff there alerted me that they were running a play in the courtyard at 4 o'clock. For free of charge for residents, and it had a great turnout. There was about 40 of us there, and it was a super play linked back to the house. It was a soliloquy play it was the personality of Lady Gregory, and she had spent time in the house, so there was a real link between the hotel and the play and the setting. And that was a wonderful way for residents to engage in something really nice and cultural that maybe could be used for trying to target the plus 55 segment for September and October. In-table technology, I have to say, I've been on some calls with the UK in the past week, and what's really coming to the fore is that in-table technology, ordering and repeat ordering app technology is actually driving increased spend in food and beverage. And I think, you know, it's certainly worth research in your businesses, you know, across the businesses we have on the call, to look at what technology could you put in place now, what process could you automate, because it's becoming very important that the focus of our staff and our teams is actually on delivering operational excellence and delivering genuine hospitality, because so much of our value proposition has changed. And we really need to be heightening, I suppose, the service experience that all our potential consumers have within our businesses. And then we have the traditional upsell opportunities of bedrooms, you know, to a higher level or a higher grade, cocktail of the day, wine, and after dinner drinks. So I think there's just some thoughts there on that slide for you to take away and to work on as a team about what you could put into your business to drive greater spend from the consumers that you have in your business. And now it's about what can you do. So really it has to be all about creating innovative value-led packages for your business. It has to be about setting a clear rate control strategy for midweek and weekend for the relevant segments that we have talked about. It's important that you all understand that revenue management has always been a little bit, you have to really look at the data to inform your actions, and that's really important as regards lead time. Make your commitment to safety highly visible, because that's a clear barrier to travel. So we're asking all of you who haven't undertaken the COVID Charter programme to do so. And we're asking those of you who have done so and are very successful at doing so to highlight that clearly on all your channels for distribution. And one of the important things, and Aisling mentioned it as well, is around having this communication hub within your business, so that there is clear understanding of the business strategy that you're now employing for September and October. The consumer segments that have been identified as willing to travel have very different travel and needs and expectations. And it's important that our internal teams are very aware of that, so that the end-to-end process of inquiring with the property and then coming and staying and booking with the property, staying with the property and leaving the property has a consistency that matches the consumer expectation. I hope that you got some learnings out of this presentation today, and I know we're going into Q&A session just now, so love to take some questions from you. Thank you.
Okay, that's brilliant, Oonagh. Thanks a million. There's some great ideas in there, and I guess great ways for business to think about things differently, and in terms of revenue generation. And it is that it's almost whenever we started with the pre-opening, it was to kind of take a step back and look at your space and see what you could do differently. And it's almost the same now as we're going into the shoulder season. It's just looking and saying, okay, how can you just flip things differently and get that information out there? Okay, so let's go to a few questions. We'll do a bit of a quick fire round. I'll go to you first, Oonagh, just it's the last one in here. There's one, is there any formula for how often we should change rates? But I think you've pretty much answered that one. So what about what segmentation changes would you advise? And I guess that's probably really now that we need to look at the domestic market differently and segment it. Like usually we kind of just put it all in one bucket, but there's a lot more nuances to it now, I think.
Absolutely, and you've hit the nail on the head there, Helen. I suppose, originally when we talk about a business mix, we've often talked about a business corporate leisure split. But now in our businesses, really our only business is actually leisure. And so, I think it would be remiss if we continue to just bucket everything into leisure. We have to look, there's a different expectation from the consumer who's plus 55 to the consumer who's an unconstrained adult pre-family to the family market. So I think we need to understand which of these niche segments, and they are niche, but there's possibly about 5 in total across families, because we will have midterm coming up at the end of October, and then we come into Christmas, which is traditionally a family time. We'll then have the kind of girl-only traveller, which is the ladies, hopefully, who'll be taking some break before Christmas as well. So I think it's important that you can measure and monitor the success of the performance of each of those segments, but stepping back from that, it's actually about being able to target each of those segments. Not every property on the call today is suitable for over 55s and for pre-family unconstrained adults. So, I think properties will have to become a little bit more specialised in their offering towards each of these segments. And that's why I'm just urging them to really review their leisure segment. And rather than just look at it as a midweek and weekend performance, it's look at it as what is the persona behind that person.
Yeah, God, it's really about agility too, and staying on it and kind of seeing how the market's switching. There's probably one that's really closely with that, Aisling, for you. And let me see a few in here. I'll bundle them all together. And it's around platforms, and really it's like what platforms are suitable for what segment, and then how could you reach an audience that's not on social media, and then with that, how effective is newspaper and radio advertising? So I guess it's a lot of questions generally about platforms and how do you target the right platform for the right segment?
Sure, and I think that's a great question, so thank you. When it comes to selecting the right channels, again, it goes back to understanding what channels our target audience are using. So we know from the research, and Oonagh talked about this as well, that 55 plus are going direct to the hotel websites and reservation teams directly by phone. So they're going direct to the accommodation provider or the attraction itself. And they're also responding very well to advertised deals. So that probably comes into the part around, how effective is radio and paid kind of newspaper ads. In terms of pre-family, they're researching very extensively. So there's, the channel mix is far greater. They won't just look at the hotel website directly, they'll also compare against booking.com. So making sure that your listing and your visuals there are up to date. Same with TripAdvisor, is that being responded to on a regular basis? And every time we respond to somebody, the communication and the messaging that we're using is essentially, I guess, an advert for our business as well. So we just need to manage all of that very, very carefully. In terms of looking beyond the social media piece, I would always suggest is to look at your communication channels and formulate a list to include online, offline, paid, owned and earned. And before you even go near earned, look at your owned and earned channels. So obviously owned is your website, social media, which we're excluding on this, but your earned is PR. So again, bringing back to your messaging that you're going to have worked on and your communication, how can you leverage PR to drive that message home with the pre-family, because they're essentially reading the Sunday newspapers on the weekend, or Irish Independent Saturday magazine, which covers a lot of these topics. And then to answer the how effective is newspaper and radio, I guess it's always very, very hard to tell in advance, but what we can do to increase the impact of our campaign is to make sure that you're selecting a newspaper publication or a radio station or program that has a market presence amongst your key segment, so the plus 55 or the pre-family, and whoever you're dealing with in the radio or newspaper can tell you that. And then it's also making sure that the messaging you use is tailored. So playing on those insights that we've just spoken about, the tastes and preferences, and that will hopefully drive a greater return for your paid spend.
Okay, great. Oonagh, here's one for you, and it's around channel mix. When do we expect the corporate channels might start becoming active again? There's a $6 million question for you.
It's a difficult one. The up-to-date information really from the main channels, and this would be kind of from GDS providers, etc., would be the end for the larger international corporates. Will be the end of Q1. Will start, and I think what you'll see is for the interim period from September onward, I think the indications are, and this is the same in the UK as well, is that the SME sector will drive some corporate business, but it'll be at lower volumes.
Okay, and really, so you're into 2021 easily.
Yes.
Yeah.
End of Q1 2021. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I gave Oonagh $1 million question. So Aisling, here's your $1 million question to finish up.
Sure.
How do you increase footfall with no marketing spend?
So again, it comes back to that, your owned and earned channels. So
okay.
I would start by making a list of all of the available channels to you. It could even be a simple digital kiosk in a lobby or a sister hotel. How are you activating every single channel that you own or can earn through PR or editorial before you even move on to marketing spend? Social media is obviously a great one as well. I know we sometimes can try and boost or sponsor ads on those platforms, but really work on getting your messaging and your content right. Try that first across owned and earned, and you should really see some return there before you have to go and do some spend. Also, just to highlight, there is a great resource called Marketing on a Shoestring on the Support Hub also. That's a good one to watch for anybody who's concerned maybe about a minimal budget.
Okay, brilliant. Well, look, I think that's all we have time for. I'm just watching the clock a bit here. So look, huge thanks to both of you for all your expertise and tips, which I hope for you, all of you listening, that you found useful. Because as we said at the start, the whole premise of today's session was to help you take that research from Jill, because sometimes research, you can hear it all, it makes sense, but it's like, okay, so what do I do with it now? And that's what today was, really to kind of make that, or turn that into tangible actions. Do really drive demand as we move into the shoulder seasons, but most importantly, kind of drive actual bookings and revenue. Just a quick heads up for you to let you know the next webinars we have coming up now are human resource focused, as there's a lot happening in that space right now that businesses need to manage. You have obviously the transition from the temporary work support scheme to the employee work support scheme at the end of the month. There's that suspension of the redundancy provisions relating to temporary layoffs and short-term works up on the 17th of September. There's a lot happening around like employees travelling to green list countries and how to handle it, increased requirement for requiring for wearing of masks for employees. So there's a lot of those issues going on. So these two sessions I'll cover off on those and a lot more. And I think the invite's going out for those tomorrow, I believe. So keep an eye out for those. And I think that is it from me. Many thanks to all of you for tuning in. As I said at the beginning, the recording of this session and the Consumer Insights one are going to be up in the Falch Ireland hub with all of the PowerPoints. And we'll also send you an email with all the links for those. And there'll also be a link in that email to ask for your feedback on these sessions. And it's literally 3 quick questions, like 3 clicks and you're done. So your feedback's really important, as we're always trying to pivot as well and do things better and improve. So we'd really appreciate that. So that just leaves me on behalf of Falch Ireland and the Enterprise Supports team to say thanks again and take care. Bye.
Thank you.